Welcome to the Hub of Vision Show, your go-to podcast for the most influential books from the greatest minds in business. We're talking marketing, influence, productivity hacks, sales, and more, all to help you accelerate your vision. Get ready for insights and strategies that drive success. You're tuned in to the Hub of Vision Show, where your business vision takes off now.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're tackling something pretty interesting. It's all about the psychology of persuasion. And specifically, we're going to be looking at this idea of commitment and consistency, which is basically this idea that saying yes, even to a tiny thing, can totally send us down a path we might not have chosen otherwise. So we're using Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, as our guide here. Get ready for some serious aha moments, because this stuff is everywhere, you guys.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's fascinating how much it kind of just blends into our daily lives.
Yeah.
You know, Cialdini kicks off the book with this great scene at the racetrack, and he talks about how he observed that people get way more confident in their bet after they put the money down, even though the horse's chances of winning are exactly the same.
Right.
It's as if that action of making the commitment just changes their whole perception of it.
Right. So is it just that act of saying yes, that triggers this need to just kind of stay consistent with that choice? Because let's be honest, I think we've all doubled down on a bad decision or two just to not look stupid.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I think it goes a little deeper than just wanting to look consistent. I think our brains are actually wired for this. They crave this harmony between our actions and our beliefs and our past choices. And this need for consistency is so strong that it can often overpower logic, even self-interest.
Wow. Okay. I'm already starting to see how this could be used in marketing and stuff. But before we jump into that,
Right.
Cialdini talks about this beach experiment.
Right.
Can you walk us through that? I feel like that really illustrates the power of this whole concept.
Absolutely. So picture this. You're at a crowded beach and someone asks you, hey, can you watch my stuff for a sec?
Yeah.
It's pretty harmless, right?
Right. Yeah.
Pretty simple request. Well, researchers actually staged a theft on a beach to see how people would react. And when nobody had been asked to watch the belongings, only a handful of people actually tried to stop the thief.
Really? But I bet when somebody had agreed to watch the stuff, things got more interesting.
Oh, yeah. It was a complete 180. 19 out of 20 people intervened to stop the theft.
Wow. Okay.
Huge difference.
That is crazy. Just saying yes to watching someone's stuff completely changes their behavior. So how does this translate to clicking agree on a website's cookie policy? Are we more likely to buy something later just because we clicked a little box?
You know what? That's a great question, and it really gets at how subtle this principle can be. Think about those online petitions that we see all the time. Signing one is really easy. That's a small commitment. But research has shown that people who sign those are actually way more likely to donate to the cause later on, even if they had no intention of doing so in the first place.
Right.
Because they've now publicly aligned themselves with that cause.
Right.
It would feel inconsistent to not donate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So taking this back to marketing, is this where we get the foot in the door technique? I feel like I've heard that before.
Absolutely. That's a classic example of commitment and consistency in action. The idea is you start with a small request, something that's so easy to say yes to that it almost seems insignificant. But because people want to be consistent with that initial yes, they're much more likely to say yes to bigger things down the line.
Okay, this is starting to sound a little bit like a sales tactic.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing there's some research behind this.
Oh, absolutely. There's tons of research. One study that Cialdini describes, researchers asked homeowners if they would display a small sticker promoting safe driving. Seems pretty harmless, right? He doesn't love safe driving. But then 2 weeks later, they went back to those same homeowners. And they asked them a much bigger question. Would they be willing to allow this giant billboard promoting safe driving to be put up on their front lawn?
Oh, come on. No way. Nobody would agree to that.
You'd think so, right? It's this giant, ugly billboard.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The people who had agreed to the little sticker were way more likely to say yes to the billboard too.
What?
Even though it was a massive commitment. And honestly, not the prettiest thing to have on your lawn.
That's crazy. So what's going on there? It's not just about looking consistent to other people, right? There's got to be something internal happening too.
Yeah, you're totally right. It really comes down to this idea of self-perception, those small commitments. Even something as simple as putting a sticker on your window start to shape how we see ourselves.
Oh, so it's okay, I put a sticker on my car that says, I support safe driving. Therefore, I must be the kind of person who'd be cool with a giant billboard on my lawn.
Exactly. Every tiny action just reinforces that image.
Yeah.
And there's actually a whole other layer to this. Cialdini talks about this concept called cognitive dissonance. Basically, it's this mental discomfort we feel when our actions and beliefs clash.
So by agreeing to these bigger and bigger requests, we're actually trying to reduce that inner conflict.
Precisely. It's like our brain is going, well, I already agreed to the sticker, so I guess I must really care about safe driving. So maybe the billboard isn't so bad after all. It's this fascinating self-justification process that just keeps us feeling like we're in alignment with our actions.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so we're seeing how external commitments like public declarations and stuff play into this. But what about the power of written commitments? I know Cialdini talks about this example from the Korean War. That was crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one. It's a chilling example of how strong this principle can be. During the war, Chinese captors would encourage American prisoners to write down seemingly harmless statements. Things like, America isn't perfect. It seems pretty innocent on the surface, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, no country's perfect. What's the big deal about writing that down?
Right. That's the crazy part. The act of writing it down, even without any threat or reward, created a shift in their thinking. The prisoners who wrote those statements down actually started to believe them more, and even act in ways that were consistent with those beliefs, even if it went against what they previously thought.
Whoa. So it's not just about what we say, it's about actually putting it in writing.
Exactly. The physical act of writing creates a sense of ownership over those words. It's like we're making a declaration, not just to the world, but to ourselves too. And that makes it really hard to back down from later.
Wow, that is powerful. I'm already thinking about all the times I've typed my name and email into an online form. It's almost like a mini commitment.
And that's exactly what marketers are banking on. Every time we fill out a form, click submit, check a box, we're strengthening that sense of commitment. Even if it's just for a free ebook or a newsletter, it might seem small at the time, but it sets the stage for larger engagements later.
Right, because we want to be consistent. And I have a feeling this plays a huge role in the age of social media where everything is so public.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is a breeding ground for commitment and consistency. Think about it. Every time we like or comment or share something, we're making a public declaration. It's like raising your hand and saying, I agree with this, or I support this.
But can a simple really have that much influence?
Well, it's all about social proof. When we see our friends and family engaging with something, it gives it more weight. We're more likely to check it out because we think, well, if all these people I trust are into it, maybe I should be too. And then when we actually make that like or comment ourselves, we become part of that social validation loop. It reinforces our own alignment with whatever we're engaging with.
It's like a cycle.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're seeing how marketers can tap into this principle. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, right? This all sounds like it could be used to manipulate people into doing things they wouldn't normally do.
You're absolutely right. It's a valid concern. That's why it's so important to use this principle responsibly and ethically. The goal shouldn't be to trick people into doing things that don't actually benefit them. It's about understanding this psychology and using it to guide people towards decisions that truly align with their values and needs.
So it's not just about being aware of these tactics as consumers. It's about being ethical if we're the ones trying to persuade others.
Exactly. It's about creating win-win situations. Help people take that first small step, provide opportunities for meaningful commitment, and reinforce those commitments in a way that builds trust and genuine connection.
This reminds me of that example Cialdini gives about the toy company, the one where they intentionally understock a popular toy, knowing that it'll create this frenzy and get parents to promise their kids something they can't even find.
Oh yeah, the classic toy shortage strategy is fascinating, but also kind of controversial. By creating that scarcity and urgency, the company gets parents to make promises to their kids, and then because those parents are desperate to keep those promises, they end up buying other toys in the meantime.
And then like magic after the holidays, the original toy is suddenly back on the shelves.
Exactly. And those parents still feel obligated to fulfill their promise, so they end up buying the original toy too. Even though the craze is over, it's clever. But it does make you wonder if it's really ethical to use parental guilt and a kid's desire for a toy to boost sales.
Right. It seems like the takeaway here is that understanding commitment and consistency isn't about like finding ways to trick people.
Yeah, it's more about recognizing its power
Yeah.
and using it in a thoughtful way to help people take actions that benefit them in the end.
Yeah.
Cialdini says the rule of commitment and consistency states that once people make a choice or take a stand, they are under both internal and external pressure to behave consistently with that commitment.
And that's not just for big life decisions, right? It's those small everyday choices we make that can really shape who we are.
Absolutely. That's the amazing thing about it. By understanding this principle, we can make choices that are more aligned with our values and our goals, and we can help other people do the same.
Okay, so let's get practical for a second. How can our listeners actually use this knowledge in a way that feels authentic and not manipulative?
I think one really powerful approach is to focus on those initial small steps.
Yeah.
Things like free trials, introductory offers, or even just asking a simple question that gets someone to say yes.
Like, are you ready to take your business to the next level? Or do you want to feel more confident?
Exactly. Those questions get people thinking in a certain way. They start to get on board with an idea before they've even fully committed to anything.
It's like a gentle nudge in the right direction.
Exactly. And once they've taken that first step, it's much easier to give them more information or offers that build on that initial commitment.
And it all comes back to consistency.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental human desire to be in alignment with our past choices and actions. By understanding this, we can make choices that are better for us.
Yeah.
And better for our businesses and brands.
It's about making more intentional and authentic decisions.
Yeah.
Decisions that are good for everyone.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into commitment and consistency, what's like the one big thing you hope people take away from this?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is awareness.
Awareness of it, like how this principle is working in our lives all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Once you see how it works, you start to notice it everywhere.
Yeah.
From those like really clever marketing campaigns to your own everyday decisions.
Yeah, it's like you've unlocked this secret code to understanding like how people behave.
Kind of. It makes you more mindful of the choices you're making and more careful about the messages you're getting.
And hopefully a little more resistant to those tactics that are trying to like use this against us.
Exactly. It's about empowering ourselves to make choices that are good for us.
Right. Speaking of choices, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
I always love your final thoughts.
So think back to a recent decision you made. Maybe like a big purchase or a commitment to a new project, or even just like a change in your daily routine. And ask yourself, was that decision influenced by a small commitment you made earlier, like maybe a conversation you had, an article you read, or even just saying yes to something that seemed tiny at the time?
It's crazy how those little things can snowball into something much bigger.
Exactly. So pay attention to those moments. Notice how commitment and consistency are showing up in your life, and then use that awareness to make decisions that get you closer to the life you want to create.
I love that. That's such a great point.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for taking us through this deep dive. It's been really eye-opening.
Of course. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us. It's been a really fun conversation.
It really has.
And to our listeners, thank you guys so much for joining us on another deep dive. We'll be back soon with more explorations into the fascinating world of human behavior. But until then, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
I hope you're leaving with some powerful takeaways to fuel your success. But don't stop here. Take it to the next level. For more insights, head over to hubofvision.com/podcast, where you'll find illustrations and infographics designed to impact your brain in a whole new way. Visualize your success and absorb these strategies deeper to become the excelling entrepreneur you're meant to be. Visit hubofvision.com/podcast and level up your vision today.